and welcome to this week's tip. Now, as you remember last week we did the beautiful watercolor flowers. Well, today I want to show you how to put them into a 3D layout. Now, what I have here is literally an old page that I found whilst doing my watercolors that I'd obviously either been practicing or using some of the colors just to see how they worked, and I thought, I really love that, I want to use it, but there was so much mucky stuff around my page, so I decided to use this as my base and to build a 3D page out of it. Now, the first thing to remember with building anything that's got a lot of depth in your scrapbook pages is to cut them right down, so when you're putting them into the sleeve of your album, they go in really easily. You don't want to bend and crush all of your embellishments. So what I've got here is the base of my page, and the picture that I've got is just this old watercolor. I've cut it down and I've also trimmed off, I've got a pair of scissors and I cut the 4 edges literally to be able to turn up these edges. Now, the reason that I'm doing this is that I want to create depth. Now, whilst we're not going to stick anything to this layer here, I wanted just to show you how brilliant it is just to create a little bit of extra depth. Now, we'll take that back up to the top. I'm using this black bit of cardstock underneath so you can see what I'm doing. I'm then going to layer it up with my next bit of cardstock, and the same thing again. Trim the corners off, turn the edges up, and it just helps hold the paper up. Now, obviously that's not going to hold the inside once it gets into a sleeve, so we're going to add some buffering there as well. Now, your top layer you leave as is. You still want to trim them all down. Now, you can see that this black card sitting behind this is 12 by 12. Everything on top of that is a little bit smaller. This is going to be my top layer, but before we get into layering and sticking it down, I just want to show you a little technique that I use. I have some old cardboard. Rather than pop-up dots, they're not really enough for what I'm looking for because they're just not broad enough. I just use cardboard. This was off an old box I had delivered. You can layer them up if you want them even thicker, and then I stick them down both sides with a bit of sticky tape. And then I begin to add my layers. Same with this one. I just build them up. Now, remember, you do need to stick both sides of your cardboard pieces. So one sticks to this layer and the next one sticks to the layer that's going to go above it. I'm just going to divide that one in two. Now, last but not least, we put on our top layer. Now, I have inked these edges and I used these circles to get the levels that I wanted to, and then I just cut around. So really simple, nothing special there. Now, we have all of these beautiful watercolor flowers that we created last week. I'm just going to have them sort of poking out of the edges. From a design point of view, I would say that your larger flowers should sit at the very back, and your smaller, more detailed flowers should sit at the front. But play around with it. You might get a feel for, now you've got a little bit of depth to work with, where things can actually sit and reside. So, just going to play around with a few of those and build up some layers there. Now, they also can be stuck down with like pop-up dots or a little bit of cardboard as well, just to really continue the theme of the 3D elements. Bearing in mind that your page is getting pretty thick by now, so you don't want to make it too thick. I've chosen a really lovely black and white photograph just because I've got a lot of colour and it is sitting quite deep into my picture. So there's a really lovely, fabulous idea there with 3D, how to create it and how to make it look really lovely, and also how to make it fit in your album, which is most important. One last little tip that I have for you: if you love journaling and you struggle to know where to put it, I sometimes go all the way around the edges here, just with a lovely dark pen, really nice and small. It looks really fabulous and it doesn't take away from the photo. I hope you've enjoyed this tip, and I'll see you next week.